Hello and welcome to another episode of the Make It Epic Wedding Podcast. You're here with Tim and Matt. Hey mate, how are ya?
G'day Tim, what is happening?
Just the usual. Sick family, sick kids, just trying to get through. No, it's been good, man. It's been quite good. First wedding back of the season, and I'm just starting to get back into the swing of things after a pretty hectic off season. Like, it's not like it was a break like other years. It just seems like I just powered through. Hey,
Yeah.
How about yourself, mate?
I agree. I feel like it's been non-stop. I don't know. It's been hectic. I am currently trying to make my office look a little bit prettier. So if you're watching this online, I'm in a different location today, changing it up. Just watch this space because my office is currently under construction.
Very nice. Did my office makeover made you realise that you perhaps need to spruce up that little office of yours?
Yeah, I just wanted to beat you, to be honest. So I just thought I'd better go and just do something. Also, I just haven't had a chance. We spend a lot of time in our offices, and having mine look like crap, I just wasn't that excited by it. So anyway, been working on that, which I'm excited by, and just obviously being flat out doing all of that too, which is always fun. So plus everything else I want to do. But anyway, that's okay. It's been good. Can't complain. Starting to get busy again. It's picking up, ready to go for the end of the year, which is, I think it's just going to be mayhem, to be honest. So I'm a little bit apprehensive about it.
Have you? Are you back? Are you back shooting weddings? Have you had your first wedding of the season yet?
I haven't really stopped, to be honest. I think I had like one or two maybe weekends off, and all the weddings I've been doing have been relatively small, so that's been nice. Kind of back into it properly at the moment, and kind of back to one or two weddings a week and full size weddings, not just kind of small intimate elopements. But I do really enjoy those small ones, which I think I've said before. But yeah,
lovely, man.
It's good.
That's amazing.
Can't complain.
Well, mate, what are we chatting about today? What is on the agenda today?
Well, I feel like we've been talking a lot over the past, lot of podcasts, but we have been chatting a lot about how to make things epic in different parts of the day. We've been chatting about how to make your reception epic and your ceremony and just your day in general. And we thought there's another aspect of the day we have missed, and we probably should talk about it because it can really make or break your day.
It's one of the most overlooked portions of the day, and I think in a way holds potentially the most significance as well.
Oh, 100%. And if you do take a bit of thought into it, it can really improve the vibes of the day and the feelings and the way that, I guess, you come into your actual ceremony feeling
Definitely,
good about
man.
it.
And of course, we are talking about your preparations, your wedding day preparations, the morning of, potentially the most important part of the day, because, as I say, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I think preparations is potentially a portion of the day that really sets a vibe, that really sets a moment and a precedence, for the energy for the rest of the day as well.
100%. And I think let's just dive straight into it because there's a few little points we want to touch on. And I think, if you take some of these into consideration, you're going to get a really well-rounded, feel about what that prep should be. And we're also going to drop some golden nuggets throughout and hopefully give you guys some hints and tips about what we get asked on a regular basis about prep, because it is something that's kind of a little bit daunting for some people and a bit unknown. And some people go, I don't really need prep. But
especially from a vendor perspective as well, right? We come in and potentially, sometimes we try not to, but sometimes it's almost like our presence, just creates a level of tension.
I know, everyone, you walk in, everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, it feels so real now." And I'm like, "Well, thank you. I'm glad I have that effect on you." But anyway, let's jump in. So we're going to talk about what, I guess the first thing is what we need to take into consideration. Obviously being distance from the venue is something that's big to talk about, but also I feel the biggest thing of all is location for your prep is absolutely everything. And that is number one on our list, because if you get the location wrong, not only for the distance from your venue, but just in terms of the general feel and vibe and look of the venue, no, not venue, venue's the wrong word, the Airbnb or the wherever you're staying, if you get that wrong, it can really ruin kind of the atmosphere and the vibes of your photos and videos and for everybody involved.
Well, what's your golden nugget here? What is your favorite? Would you prefer to have prep in a house or in a Airbnb? Like, and what are pros and cons?
I think like either way, house or Airbnb, like if it's a family house, you know, your family home, I understand the significance around that. You know, obviously if it is that, try and clean up a little section of the house if it is messy, because we have walked into houses before, like Tim's rubbing his head here looking like disgusted because I know there's a couple that we
remember?
I remember and we're not going to talk about it. We're just going to ignore it. But we have walked into a couple of houses in the past which realistically probably shouldn't have been used as a preparation venue. And that's because, you know, there's just not the space that we need, and, you know, it still needs to be a little bit clean. Like we can't work our magic that much that, you know, if you're living in a hoarder's house, you know, we can't really fix that for you. So I suppose if it was Airbnb or a house, look, it's much of a muchness. I understand the significance of a house. An Airbnb, typically, it's got a bit of style to it. You know, you've picked it because you like the look of the photos, and then hopefully you can picture yourself in those photos.
And also, you've chosen the Airbnb because it's close to the venue as well, like, which really comes back into location. And that's why having an Airbnb is a favorite for myself, right? Because travel is a huge one, okay? And it's not just, okay, like 15 minutes between, you know, like between the boys and the girls, or like between each couple. You know, we've got to add in like pack down time. You've got to add in so much of time of a vendor. It takes a lot more to just, you know, like leave, suddenly hop in the car and drive there. So there's a lot more that goes in, and the more we start adding these variables, that time really does add up, and it takes away too much from the day, and then, you know, potentially you start a little bit too late, and before you know it, you've only got half an hour with the guys, or like 45 minutes, and it's just not enough time to get things done. And I really love making sure that we have time to do what we need to do, and we don't want to bring chaos. We want to make sure that we're actually there to, you know, like create a relaxed environment. Like for me, I want to like walk in, and I want to walk in as a human first. I don't want to walk in like as a videographer. Like I don't want my camera to be a barrier to like build a relationship or to create a connection. So for me, it's important that we have enough time. We start at a reasonable time. But also we try and make you as comfortable as possible. So what are some other points, mate?
I think like the other big one is like natural light. Like if there's somewhere with natural light, like obviously for us, we love natural light. We use that light to our advantage, and, you know, yeah, if we have to bring a light in, we could, but it's not that. Like, I guess it's a bit like, especially early in the day, having an additional like light, it's just a bit in your face. It's a bit production-y. It's a bit like, I feel unnecessary. We want to keep it as calm and relaxed as possible. So having something with some natural light, you know, and a little bit of open space never goes astray. I think, like, you know, that's something definitely important. If you can, I suppose if you are like booking an Airbnb and you do have that option to kind of book something with that, like that would be definitely a benefit.
Yeah, I absolutely envy you when you're able to shoot in portrait, like, or like vertical, and like, unfortunately for video,
on one side,
we've got to shoot landscape, right? We have to shoot wide, and in crowded spaces, like it really like takes away from that image. Like if we're trying to, you know, take a video like of like the dress in full, and we're really getting that wide shot, but, you know, if it's a little bit crowded, it can feel a little bit claustrophobic.
Yeah, 100%. I also think like it's important to like not only have like something that's got like, you know, a little bit of natural light. It's probably also important to have something that you genuinely like, and it's probably point number one. I would say probably push that to the top, because if you are genuinely loving like what it looks like, you're going to love the photos on, you know, the content that you get out of that, because like it goes hand in hand. And I think, you know, like if we're going to spend the money on something, like make sure you do spend the money on something quality, I suppose.
Well, it's your wedding day, right? Like it is the morning preparations. This is where you are getting ready to have your wedding, and you want it to be significant. You want it to be, you know, a morning where like it's positive. Like you're gonna be like with your family, you're gonna be with your friends, like you're gonna be with the people that you chose to be there on your like special day. So I would just have a think about like what type of environment do you want to create? Like what environment do you want to like portray? And there's a few things that I think we can add in, which we're going to talk about later, to help elevate that environment, to help elevate that experience. But really have a think about, what do you want that morning to look like? I know for me, like when I have my consultations with my couples, I'm asking, okay, like guys, what does the morning look like? Are we
playing golf,
sleeping in?
Yeah,
like, are we going for a surf? Like
Yeah.
exactly, like what are we doing like in the morning? What's happening? What time are we looking at getting ready? Let's just set like a time roughly that you boys all need to be showered. So it gives us enough time to actually like come in there, do what we need to do, but also make it fun. Like, I don't want to take videos of just you guys taking your shirt off, putting it back on, doing some buttons, getting some nice tight like shots of like you doing each button up. Like that's not, for me, like that's not something that necessarily like brings me joy like into the films. Like I really want to know like what is it about that morning that is so important, right? And like if we talk about typically the guys first, like they just want to have it. Like they just want to sit down. They want to relax. They want to have a drink. And, like they say, like if you want to have a stress-free wedding, just be the groom.
100%. They do have it pretty easy, don't they? The boys. And like, I think just taking like, all of that into account, like, when we're thinking about like, oh, I've got to spend this money and I've got to book a venue and I've got like, or a location for me to stay. And, obviously for both sides, like for you and your partner, like it is expensive, but I just was like thinking just then about it, and it's probably not on our list, but like there are ways to kind of like think about how we can best like utilize that time, because you are going to have to stay, like have to do a minimum of 2 nights, like the night before the wedding and the night of the wedding, right? So typically I would say in the past, like couples have gone and stayed, one of them like has gone to one of the like Airbnbs or one of the locations, something like that, and they've stayed in that place, and then the other one's empty. Or the best idea is they've put a family member, a friend, or whoever they can into that second event, or like second Airbnb, second accommodation, and I think like that's really like being smart about the way that you're utilizing your spaces, because like you're not wasting money. Someone's gonna have to pay for accommodation anyway. Maybe you can get them to pay half of it, who knows.
Typically I find like the boys have got it so easy, right? They're there by themselves, and the girls have like all the family members like staying with them. If they have kids, the kids are staying there as well.
The boys also typically can have like a real like shitty looking place too, which like I understand why, like they're probably like, oh, we'll just stay there because it's convenient, but like still put the effort in for the boys too. It's okay. Anyway, I feel like we've harped on about that, and we probably touched on about 50 of the other points inside that one point that we're going to talk about. But let's move on. So like the next one we're talking about like, and we're probably rolling in straight from that, is like the people that you have around you on the day, because like me and Tim have and walked into like a lot of preps before, and it's been absolute chaos, as we said earlier. Like, and sometimes the chaos is because there's too many bloody people there that don't probably need to be at your prep.
Too many competing opinions. It's
too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Is that the right?
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, that one. That'll do. But like you don't need every single auntie and uncle and cousin and niece and nephew standing there watching you get your hair and makeup done, or watching you put your suit on, or it's just not helpful for your mental capacity and your mental health, probably for the morning of. There's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of people going around, there's a lot of kerfuffle, and sometimes calm vibes is better than chaotic vibes.
That's
actually
right.
Not even sometimes. It's always better.
Always.
I take that back.
Look, it is your wedding day, right? So you make the call, have the people that mean the most. And, potentially it may mean cutting some people and just being like, look, I will see you at the wedding. But this is your wedding day, all right? And I think it's important you have the people that bring you the most joy and bring you the most value and hold the most significance for you. And typically that's where it's the actual calmest. That's where, and we can't underestimate this. We can't, reiterate this enough. And really rings sorry, I'm rambling here. It rings true that the people around you on your wedding day for the morning really set a tone for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and I think that even goes into like vendors too, right? Like this is probably part 2 to it. Like the vendors you've got there, and we're not talking photo video. We're talking like hair and makeup. Like having the team that are there in the morning, like they're spending a lot of quality time with you, probably at your most vulnerable too, I suppose, when the emotions are running hot, you're sitting around waiting. So having like good people around you, like good vendors around you in the morning is like super important. Like a couple of weeks ago we shared like about like how like having like a team around you, like of your wedding, it's a massive thing, like and if you've got the right team around you, like your day is going to be amazing. And we always are pushing that on this podcast because we do wholeheartedly believe it. So this probably is something that like I think it's super important to like have that conversation with your hair and makeup artist prior, and maybe before you book them, make sure that you can hold a good conversation with them, because they're going to be sitting around and it's just you guys having a chat, and I think it is super important. Obviously, you're going to love their work, but the next level is can you spend a lot of time with them, and can you potentially be a little bit vulnerable around them, and if you can't, maybe hire a bigger place you can hide from them.
Yeah. And how many I suppose how many people are getting hair and makeup done as well? And it's got to come into play that it needs to be done in a reasonable time. Like you can't just assume that hair and makeup's going to be finished 1 hour before you're supposed to leave, and it's going to happen on the dot. Because how many times has it happened where you've rocked up even a little bit early, and hair and makeup are all right? We're still like half an hour from being finished, and it just throws so much, because it means you can't actually. There's not enough time to physically capture what you need to capture as well.
Yeah, timeline, massive, right? Like, if you can get this timeline right, it's great. But I'm not to throw I don't know, I always say stuff, and then I'm like, I threw them under the bus, or threw myself under the bus. But not to throw the hair and makeup people under the bus, but typically they can run late. Let's just put it that way. And it can affect the day, like as Tim said, like if we've got to wait half an hour, like sometimes we're only at a bride prep for an hour and a half, and if we're sitting around for half of that waiting for your hair and makeup to be done, it's not ideal for you guys. Like you're wasting a lot of time. So my advice always is to try and get your hair and makeup to be pretty much finished by the time that me and photographer and videographer are meant to be turning up, because if you're doing that, even if it runs a little bit late, it's hopefully not going to be too much later. So that kind of like, that's my little hot tip for that one, is like, yeah, hair and makeup finished by the time photo and video team are turning up.
Yeah. I suppose a contingency is to be second last as a bride for your hair and makeup as well.
Yeah, maybe put like the mother of the bride, or for, someone who's going to who's not in the bridal party specifically, to be last, just so that there's a little bit of time for us to capture what we need with the bridal party.
Let's give some context on timings, right? So how much time would you say you will need for the boys, right? For the preparations of the guys?
Let's be honest, the boys don't really want us there at all. But I would say
I'm there to perhaps maybe open a couple of beers with them, maybe have a chat, build some banter.
I think it's a misconception, right? Like they think we're turning up, that we want them in their undies, and they're it's not really the case at all. Typically I'm happy for the boys to pretty much be half ready by the time we get there, and that's okay. But I suppose for me, I'm 30 to 45 minutes is kind of with the boys is enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Bit of travel time to the ladies, or to and then we're into it with the girls from anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half is probably what I kind of suggest. I
think an hour, if it's going to be quite smooth, because
it's not enough. Really,
look, with the girls, you do want to be able to have some time to do the flat lay, do some prep stuff, get the dress out. Sometimes it takes a while to figure out where to hang the dress, where to put the dress, especially if you want that shot as well. I always in
all
my
the first looks you've got to do, there's just so many things take time.
Man, first looks can take so much time, and I love them. I absolutely love them. But if you do want it, this is something that you do need to plan, and it's something that you do need to take into account, which means your hair and makeup need to be done even earlier. Matt, do you know how we rave on about client experience a little? And do you want to know the golden nuggets behind my client delivery system?
Not really, but anyway, I know you're going to tell me, so shoot.
Thanks, mate. Love that. But you know we're all about leveling up our client experience. And if you're still delivering wedding films to your couples with Google Drive or Dropbox, then you really aren't giving them the best experience, are you? And this is why I use VidFlow. It's a pay-per-use online platform that allows you to deliver on-brand websites with your very own domain for each of your clients while still being incredibly affordable. And VidFlow is accessible on mobile, desktop, and my absolute favorite feature is the fact that it links to your smart TV so your couples can watch their wedding film on their own big screen. And with all that effort that you put into your film, you really want to ensure your couples can have the best experience possible. So use our code MakeItEpic20 for 20% off your VidFlow yearly premium membership.
Yeah, and you probably just need to take all these things into consideration. Like, we're not saying you have to do any of this at all. So maybe just before we continue, let's just remember that it's your wedding day, and everybody's expectations are different, right? Like, we're not saying we need to take photos of you pre getting into your wedding dress, and that's okay. There's plenty of couples that I chat to, and the bride's like, I do not want any photos of me prior to being in my wedding dress. I'm like, great, that's fine. But there is this definite expectation, and I don't know where it's come from, that they think that
it needs to be done.
It needs to be done. Yeah, I'm going to be I'm going to be offended that they're not I'm not allowed to capture that, and they're doing it to make me happy. And 100%. It really frustrates me. So
irks you.
That's what irks me this week. That's what I've been wanting to say that for a long time. I feel like I've just gone to counselling, so thank you. But it does frustrate me because I do I say it without trying to be rude, but I really. This sounds terrible, but I couldn't care less in the nicest way possible. I couldn't care less what I capture or don't capture, if that makes sense. If you don't want to be captured in your pajamas, that's okay, right? If you don't want photos of your hair and makeup getting done, that's okay. If you don't want a flat lay of your things that are special to you on the ground shot, that's okay. If you don't want prep at all, fine, no stress.
Yeah.
But just have you need to really think about it. You really need to take into account what's important to you and then make that happen. And don't be feeling like you're going to offend anybody else. And that's so true for any part of the day. Really.
I'll reiterate. I think what Matt's trying to say there as well is that as vendors, we want to be able to best tell your story. But to tell your story, we need to know what's important to you. And this is why we open these lines of communication to really figure out what is it that is important, what is it that is of value. And there's questions that I like to ask, and I know you like to ask the same things, in especially when we're talking specifically about the preparations, is there things happening in the morning that are important to you? If you don't want to start in super early, before you get into the dress, then that's completely fine. We will work with that. But what we want to do as wedding vendors is provide a good experience for you. We want to provide an amazing product, and we want to be able to tell your story in the best way we can. But we don't want to take away from your story by just capturing something for the sake of capturing it, because that doesn't serve you at all, and it doesn't serve us either, because we don't want to create boundaries of what we would maybe typically do, because we want to make sure it's personalized to you.
Yeah, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about this, and it's probably why I was getting a little bit,
That's right, mate. We love it.
But
this is why we have these conversations. We open it up, and I'm sure we're going to get people to be like, yeah, we completely agree, and there's going to be people that'll be like, we don't agree with that. We think you should always just capture it, because that's what a photographer does.
Yeah, and I still will come back and say that at the end of the day, you need to do things that bring joy to you, and if that doesn't bring joy to you, don't do it. Keep the things at the forefront of your mind that are important to you, and do them, because if you're going to do that, you're going to have a smile on your face and you'll be happy by it. So Yeah, and look, I probably just got very sidetracked from what we were talking about, so I'm going to go back a little bit. In terms of timing, and as we said, should we be there for an hour to an hour and a half? Realistically, an hour may not be enough, and so it comes back to, I guess, your negotiables and non-negotiables. An hour and a half is probably where it's at for most people wanting a well-rounded kind of capture of, I guess, or captured event for prep. Throwing in, obviously, all of these things, you need to take into account the travel time and distance from your venue.
I suppose we can't reiterate that enough. Travel time is huge. Really try and make it close, man. I have had preparations from bride to groom or partner to partner that up to an hour away. And can you imagine that drive? As soon as prep's done, and I have to go to the next house, it's in the car, speeding down the highway, trying to make up any minutes I can.
Have you seen the meme going around at the moment? It's photographers and videographers driving from prep to prep, and it's a guy sitting in the front of his car, and on his steering wheel, he's got a 2-minute noodle bowl screwed to it, and as he's turning the corner, he's mixing the 2-minute noodles up, and then he's got a spoon in his hand. So good.
I feel like that's true. Me as well. That's probably why I've got no points whatsoever.
Yeah, you're a terrible driver,
mate. I'm a great driver. I've just got no points. All right, we keep getting off track, but there's something else that I want to mention why we're talking specifically about having the people around you. And there can be times when there's a lot of things to do in the morning, and especially if you've